Have you ever felt upset all day just because of a small thing? A message not replied. As simple comment. A quick look. At first, it's nothing. But then your mind starts, they're ignoring me. They don't respect me. Something's wrong. And the more you think, the more real it feels. Slowly, the emotion builds. Not instantly, but step by step. You feel uncomfortable, then annoyed, then hurt, and you believe someone else caused this. But here's what I didn't realize before. It wasn't what they did. It was the story I created in my mind, and the craziest part, I believed that story, without ever questioning it, until one day I stopped and thought, what if this isn't what's really happening? Let's look at something simple. You send a message, and they don't reply. That's it. No explanation, no response, nothing else. That's the reality. But in your mind, something else starts happening. You think they're ignoring me. I'm not important to them. Did I do something wrong in just a few seconds? A story is created. No one said it. No one confirmed it. But you believe it. And then the emotion comes, not from the message, but from the story. You start to feel uneasy, then anxious, then frustrated. You check your phone again. You reread the message. You imagine different scenarios. But the truth is, maybe they're just busy. Maybe they didn't see it. Maybe it's nothing at all. But you're not living in that reality. You're living in your version of it. And the dangerous part is, that version feels completely real, so real that you forget it's just a thought, not a fact. What makes it harder is, you don't even realize you're telling a story. You think it's the truth. You don't question it. You don't pause. You just believe it. And once you believe that story, the emotions feel real too. A small thought turns into a strong feeling. A simple assumption becomes real pain. And here's the thing, you don't just tell that story once. You repeat it. You replay the moment. You add more details. You imagine new scenarios. The story starts simple, but the more you think, the bigger it becomes. And the bigger it gets, the more you believe it. That's how you create your emotions, not in one moment, but through a chain of thoughts, until you can't tell the difference anymore between what actually happened and what you created in your mind. Then I started to realize something important. Not every thought is true. Before, whenever a thought showed up, I assumed it was right. I didn't question it. I didn't check it. I just believed it and reacted. But when I began to pay attention, I saw something different. My thoughts weren't facts. They were just interpretations, shaped by my past, my fears, what I was used to believing, which means the same situation can be seen in many different ways, but I always chose the worst one, not because it was more accurate, but because I was used to thinking that way, and that habit was creating my emotions, not other people, not the situation, but the meaning I gave it. Once I saw that, I started to slow down, not to fix the thought right away, but to ask, is this actually true? And just that one question began to change everything. Once I started questioning my thoughts, I noticed something surprising. Most of what I believed was just assumption. I thought people didn't like me. I thought they were judging me. I thought they were trying to disrespect me. But when I looked closer, there was no real proof. Just thoughts. Just stories in my head. And the dangerous part is, I reacted to those stories as if they were real. I felt angry. I felt hurt. I felt uncomfortable, not because of what actually happened, but because of what I thought was happening. That's when I began to slow down. I stopped trusting every first thought that appeared. I started asking, am I seeing this clearly, or am I just guessing? And that small pause changed everything, because most of the time there was nothing there, no hidden meaning. No problem? Just my mind, trying to fill the gap, so I tried something simple. Every time a negative thought showed up, I didn't believe it right away. I paused, just for a few seconds, and I asked myself, if I don't add any meaning to this, what's actually happening? And the answer was usually simple. Someone didn't reply. They just didn't reply. A strange look was just a look. A short comment was just a comment. No hidden message. No drama. No extra story. And once the story disappeared, the emotion started to fade too. I wasn't overthinking anymore. I wasn't creating new scenarios in my head. I wasn't making things bigger than they were. I started living in reality, not in my imagination. And that felt different. Lighter. Clearer. Easier. After practicing this for a while, something started to change. I didn't react as quickly anymore. Before, a thought would appear, and I would instantly believe it. Then the emotion would follow right after. But now, there was a pause, a small gap between the thought and my reaction, and that gap changed everything. I started to see that not every thought needs a response. Not every feeling needs to be followed. Some things are better left alone. I stopped trying to fix every thought. I stopped trying to understand everything. I just watched. And when I stopped participating in the story in my head, everything became quieter. Not because life got easier, but because I stopped making it harder. Then I realized something even deeper. The negative thoughts didn't disappear. They were still there. But the difference was, I didn't believe them anymore. Before, every thought felt important. It carried weight. It triggered emotion. It controlled my reaction. But now, a thought was just a possibility, not a fact, not a conclusion. I started to see thoughts like passing opinions, maybe true, maybe not, but not something I had to follow. And that created distance, a clear space between me and what I was thinking. I wasn't attached to every thought anymore. I wasn't pulled by every emotion, and that changed how I experienced everything. A situation would happen, and I didn't rush to interpret it. I didn't jump to conclusions. I just saw it as it was, and when there was no story, there was nothing for the emotion to hold on to. Everything felt lighter, simpler, more peaceful. After some time, I started to notice a real shift. Things that used to bother me barely affected me anymore. Not because I became numb, but because I stopped adding meaning to everything. A situation happens. I see it. I understand it. And then I let it go. No replaying. No overthinking. No holding on to it. And that creates a completely different feeling. A kind of lightness I didn't have before. I'm not reacting to every little thought. I'm not getting pulled by every emotion. I started choosing what actually deserves my attention. Not everything needs a reaction. Not everything matters that much. And when you stop adding stories to your life, everything becomes simpler. Less noise, less stress, less confusion. Just reality, as it is. Then I realized something that changed everything. I always thought my emotions came from the outside, from people, from situations, from what happened around me, but that wasn't true. My emotions came from how I saw things. The same situation could make me feel calm or completely upset, not because the situation changed, but because my interpretation changed. Once I saw that clearly, I stopped feeling like a victim. I stopped thinking, they made me feel this way. Instead, I understood I'm reacting this way. And that small shift gave me back control. I stopped trying to change people. I stopped expecting them to act a certain way. I focused on one thing only: how I choose to see things. Because that's the only thing I truly control. And when you understand that, you don't depend on others to feel okay anymore. You don't need everything to be perfect. You just need to see things in a way that keeps your peace. And at some point, I realized I wasn't the same anymore. Things that used to hurt me deeply now just pass by, not because I became cold, but because I stopped creating stories that hurt me. I stopped believing every thought. I stopped reacting to every feeling. I started living in reality instead of my imagination, and that changed everything. I felt lighter, less stressed, less controlled. Not because life became easier, but because I stopped making it harder. And in that moment, I understood something clearly. No one can truly hurt me unless I believe the story in my head. And when I stop believing it, everything stops. After all of this, I didn't become perfect. I still have negative thoughts. I still feel uncomfortable sometimes. I still catch myself reacting. But the difference is, I don't get carried away anymore. I notice it. I see the thought. I feel the emotion. And then I choose not to follow it. It's not always easy. Some days, the same old patterns come back. The same stories, the same feelings. But this time, I don't believe them like I used to. I don't let them control how I feel. I let them be there, and I let them pass. And the more I do that, the more I understand something important. Peace doesn't come from life getting better. It comes from not being affected by everything, not because you're stronger than life, but because you understand yourself better. And maybe the most important thing I learned is this: you don't have to believe everything that shows up in your mind. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean it's true. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it. You always have a choice. Not in what happens to you, but in how you see it. You can keep telling the same old story, keep assuming, keep making things heavier than they are. Or you can pause, see things as they are, without adding meaning, without judging too quickly. And when you do that, you start to realize something clearly. A lot of the pain you felt before was never really there. It was created by your thoughts, and when you stop creating it, your life feels completely different. Lighter, calmer, more real. And then you start to notice something strange. The world around you hasn't changed. Same people, same situations, same problems. But your experience of it feels completely different. Things that used to stay in your mind all day now pass in seconds. Things that once hurt you deeply no longer hit the same way. Not because they disappeared, but because you stopped giving them meaning. You don't rush to conclusions anymore. You don't create stories in your head. You just see things and let them go. And in that simplicity, you find peace. Not a peace that depends on everything being perfect, but a quiet, steady calm that comes from within. A kind of peace that no one can take from you. And eventually, you stop trying to change people. You stop expecting them to understand you. You stop needing them to act a certain way. Not because you give up, but because you understand they have their own story, and you have yours. You can't control how they think. You can't control what they do. But you can always choose how you see it. And when you stop trying to fix everything outside, you start looking inward. You become more aware of your thoughts, more aware of your reactions, and you no longer respond on autopilot. You slow down. And in that slowing down, you become clearer. You're not pulled by every situation. You're not driven by every thought. You become steady, not because life is easier, but because you stop carrying extra weight, and that's the truth. Nothing outside of you has the power to control how you feel. Not people. Not situations. Not what happened. Only the story you tell yourself does. Once you see that, everything changes. You stop overthinking. You stop reacting to everything. You stop creating pain that was never really there. You don't become perfect, but you become aware, and that awareness gives you something powerful: choice. The choice to stay calm, the choice to let go, the choice to protect your peace. If this made you see things differently, and you want more videos like this, comment too, I'll continue.